Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Moving to 2.0, adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as printed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 3.0, approval of the minutes from the November 21st meeting.
So moved. Approve.
Second?
Moved and seconded to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
4.0, consideration of bills and warrants. Any questions about the bills this evening?
Move to approve?
Second.
Okay, hearing none, moved and seconded to approve those bills and warrants. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 5.0, hearing of requests and suggestions of citizens and organizations. Is there anyone that would like to address the board that's not already on the agenda? No one? Moving to 6.0, report of the superintendent of schools.
Okay, we've got just a few things on the agenda this evening. ESSER update. So the ESSER 3 plans for districts that have not turned one in, the deadline was last Friday, the 16th. We had a meeting. Ours has already been turned in and been approved, so we're not on the list. There were 51 districts across the state that elected not to turn one in, so I thought that was interesting. We're still putting the final touches on the changes in our plan to make sure that we have all of that money allocated during second semester, so that then we can just move forward with that. So right now, we have winter recess, so that's started December the 19th today, goes through December the 30th. Students don't come back until January the 3rd. Staff comes back on January 2nd for professional development. And so that day, our elementary staff will be working on their letters training, which is that literacy instruction. They've been working on our middle school. It's going to be doing some things like e-mints, which is part of their grant, as well as some IEPs at a glance, and do some other work. Our high school has a classroom management boot camp scheduled, as well as some team time as well. So looks like that day will be full. January the 16th, school will not be in session and the district office will be closed in honor of Martin Luther King Day. And so our next regularly scheduled board meeting will be on Tuesday, January the 17th.
Any questions? All right, thank you. 7.0 is a report on the Tri-County Board meeting. Mr. Castle's gone this evening, so.
He did send me a report. Here we it was very quick. He received so their meeting was December the 22. He didn't tell me what day. Received the report from Director McCambridge on the gifts to staff, staffing needs, and reports that will be or have been submitted. He approved an additional full-time early childhood teacher in Parsons beginning second semester, and that's for our preschool classes. Approved the purchase of 2 vans and a car for staff and student transportation. Approved a 3-year contract with Jared Gilmore and Phillips for completing the federal audit, and approved the extending the contract for the Tri-County Director through the 24-25 school year. So those were the items that were on the Tri-County Special Ed Cooperative meeting in December. The other item is Mike says he's going to need someone to cover the January meeting.
Okay.
So, do I have any volunteers? I don't know if I'm supposed to get a volunteer. Joanne will do that. That would be great. I'll let Mike
Thank you
know.
very much. We appreciate that service.
Yes, we do. And it'll be quick, because meetings have been quick.
Right.
Great.
Also, like,
Okay, moving to 8.0, we've got item A, which is an update from Mr. Giefer, the Transportation Director.
so these items were all included in your view on Friday. So that information is what he's going to review.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'll just go over this. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Right now, we're running 4 AM buses and 3 sped route buses and transporting about 393 students. We have 1 more AM bus in the morning because of the number of students. As you'll see there, we have 3 PM bus routes, 3 sped routes that are transporting roughly 30 students less. We just had 1 bus early in the morning that was just so overloaded that Ms. Ray agreed to let me put on another bus just to take some of the load off of that. I think a lot of the reason for that is, the kids would go to school on bus, but then they would stay for athletics and stuff like that where they didn't need the bus to go home. We have 1 midday sped route that transports approximately 8 students to school or home, mainly pre-K students. On our activity trips this year, as you can see, activity trips are up this year. I think people are not worried about COVID anymore, so the floodgates have opened. They want to go. Activity trips in September was 29, using 34 buses. October was 49 activity trips, using 66 buses. Activity trips for November was 38, using 51 buses. and in December was half a month, 17 activity trips with 25 buses. We transport approximately, at least some information I didn't put on your report, but I'll give it to you anyhow. We transport 11 students on the midday route, mainly pre-K. I know I said we was talking about 8 up there, but I recounted that, and we do have a few more than what I previously counted. We have 24 students who are signed up for the after-school program transportation. And about all of them ride, so usually they'll lose interest, but they're pretty much all still riding at the after school. We have 11 bus drivers, probably as good off as we've been since I started here on the number of bus drivers we have. And we have 8 bus monitors. Seems like this year it's been harder to find bus monitors. They just move on to other jobs, but we're getting the job done.
What do you attribute the number and quality of bus drivers to anything in particular? I mean, you say you're in the best position. I mean, is there anything to lead to that?
I shared this information with Miss Ray a while ago. I think it was Friday I shared the information with her. But when I recruit bus drivers, the main thing I tell them, this is a good school district to work for. I worked for 2 other school districts previously to this one. Not saying anything bad about them, but this school district takes care of their employees. I think that helps a lot.
That's good. Good. Any other questions for Mr. Giefer here?
We're very fortunate to have Rick and to have his knowledge base. He came in, when we decided we weren't going to pay for transportation, we were going to buy buses, and so I bought buses having really no idea what I was doing, and we're fortunate he got in there and he knows what to do. This KSD calls him and asks him to present things and do different things, so.
I know you hired me to be the transportation director to build a transportation department. Your transportation department is the employees. They're the employees, and we're very well staffed right now. We could use a couple more monitors, but we're in good shape right now.
And it's a really good group of people.
We do, really we
It
do.
really is. They do a good job.
How's the
Good.
maintenance going, the maintenance agreement with the?
On the buses and vehicles. Steve Vollmer does our buses, does an awesome job. I can't say enough good things about him. There's been times we've had a bus break down on the street. I'll pick up the phone, he'll drop what he's doing and come take care of it. But he does an excellent job. And for what we pay a month, you can't afford to have your own mechanic. You just can't.
It's
Good.
nice to have someone local you trust.
Good.
It's good work.
That's very helpful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Appreciate your commitment in coming this evening. Okay, food service update from Ms. Kirkpatrick.
Good evening.
Good evening.
No.
I was just going to touch base with you guys a little bit. We have 2 base kitchens. One is at the high school, one's at the middle school. At the high school, we send out our food to Garfield and Guthridge. We have 1 kitchen manager and 4 staff at the high school. At the high school, we have served 3,736 breakfasts, 9,778 lunches. Garfield, we've served 6,248 breakfasts and 10,643 lunches. Guthridge was 5,902 breakfasts and 10,410 lunches. At the middle school, there's a kitchen manager and 6 staff. The food is sent to Lincoln. St. Pat's is catered and delivered at that site by the number of orders each day. Middle schools serve 9,400 breakfasts and 15,395 lunches. St. Pat's over the last semester is 3,412, and Lincoln is 6,704 breakfasts, 9,268 lunches. We have Viking Vittles, which consist of a sandwich, a chip, fruit, snack, and water, and they go with the kids for their away games. We provided 495 at the high school and 592 at the middle school. We do have 2 part-time employees, one's at Garfield, one's at Guthridge, and we have 1 person that kind of floats back and forth, will do with whatever we need him to do.
Are you pleased with the system that
Yes.
you have?
Yes. We could use 1 more staff at the high school. We lost 1 here a couple of weeks ago, so we're looking to hire 1 more staff.
Is the feedback that you receive from, people that eat your meals and so forth pretty positive, or what's your thought?
Pretty positive, yeah.
The fruits and vegetable bar always looks very nice. I've had the salads. Kids seem to be eating, we're feeding thousands and
Yeah, well, that's what I hear. and
Wow, the
Right.
numbers are,
I haven't
They're
received
way high.
any negative feedback,
Yeah.
and most of the time in previous years where we hadn't outsourced it, or even when we did outsource it, I received a lot of negative feedback.
all right. If it's not good, you hear,
Right,
especially, I mean, you really do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you
that's
really
right.
do.
that's true.
Any other questions?
Those ladies and gentlemen work hard in those kitchens.
That
They
they do.
stay busy. They are hopping.
Is there any major facility issues that need to be addressed in the short, medium, long term?
I can't think of anything right offhand, no.
Long-term might be those point-of-sale machines.
Yes.
That might be something, it's, the student will come up and punch in their number, and then the adult will punch in a number, punch in a la carte. And tech has been able to kind of baby them on through, but that might be something in the next 2 or 3 years that we look at.
Right.
They're just slow, or they don't.
They are slow,
slow.
and there've been a couple days where it didn't work.
Right.
And we didn't know until afterwards it didn't work, and so then having to
Oh.
go back and re-enter all of that and recapture that. You've got to be really careful, because we are being reimbursed. They're federally,
Sure.
funded meals. So the point-of-sale machines, I think, this last 9 weeks, I think
Last
we've
9
been
weeks, they've
okay.
been working pretty good.
Yeah, first 9 weeks was
Yeah.
pretty
Was a little
glitchy.
touchy.
How old are they?
They've been there since I've been the superintendent, so at least 5 years. I would say, we could check with Linda. I'd say 10, 15 years.
Technology, that's something technology probably changes.
Well, and we got something in the mail the other day. The new machines look very similar to the old machines. I think it's a pretty basic type of thing, but yeah,
Okay.
there's probably something new. Make it run a little quicker.
Yep.
So,
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
thank you guys both for coming. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll move on to 9.0, action to accept the donations to schools.
Okay, so the donations are on page 40 in your packet. First of which is the district office, a donation from Wall Funeral Home for the high school parent-teacher conference meal valued at $565. Lincoln Elementary, there was a donation from Tank Connection for Kids Local, which is a restricted donation for a needs closet, $500. At Garfield Elementary, Pam Burris made a restricted donation of books, $15. Kids Local from Tank Connection, another restricted donation for the needs closet, $500. And PTO made a restricted donation, $188, totaling $703 at Garfield. At Guthridge, PTO made a donation of $1 per student for some Christmas valued at $186. PTO made a donation for Santa stations, $225. And then Tank Connection made another Kids Local restricted donation for the needs closet, $500, totaling $911 at Guthridge. The middle school Tank Connection, that Kids Local made that restricted donation for a needs closet, $500. Their PTO made a donation for teacher reinforcement and recognition at $1,000, so that's $1,500 total there. Parsons High School, Ohio Pile Prints for Positive Reinforcement Program, $8.40. Interstate Studios, the Positive Reinforcement Program, $317.45. Charlene Piper made a donation to Honor Flight, $20. Wall Funeral Homes made a donation to Honor Flight, $100. Commercial bank employees made donations to the PHS Honor Flight, $600. Roger Duroni donated 105 feet of ash board for a woodworking program, valued at $446.25, for a total of $1,492.10 at the high school, making total donations for November of 2022, $5,671.10 to the district. Once again, every month, we have such generous folks in our community. So I recommend that you approve those donations.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept those donations. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 9.1, action to appoint board members to the 23-24 negotiations team. So do we have anybody that wants to serve on that negotiations team? It's awful fun.
Would you guys like to continue on?
I don't
Very
know.
experienced, tenured
Why not?
negotiation team.
I guess that we can do it jointly.
Well, I'd make a motion to have Dr. Quirin and Mr. Martino as our negotiation team.
And I second it proudly.
Okay, moved and seconded that Mr. Martino and myself will be on the negotiations team again. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. 9.2, action to appoint the board member to the calendar committee. I know Olivia oftentimes, or at least historically, has done that.
She has.
And so she didn't tell me that she didn't want to do it again, but we could,
I did last year.
oh, you did?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
she had done it for a long time. I'll go ahead and do it this year.
Okay, that'll be fine then, so. Anybody wants to make that
Second that.
motion?
Can I
Okay,
make that motion?
all right. Moved and seconded to have Ms. Thompson on the calendar committee for 2023-24. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, 9.3, first reading of the CASB recommended policy updates.
So those are just in your packet, pages 41 to 72. They were included in the view, so action on those recommendations for those policy updates will be on the January agenda. So if you have any questions prior to that, feel free to give me a call and we can.
Well, I have questions tonight.
Oh, I was not prepared for questions tonight. I didn't know that you had
Well,
questions.
it's okay.
Okay, I can sure mark them.
Here's
To go
the
back.
deal.
Okay,
I wasn't going to say anything until I saw something on Twitter. In fact, I brought this up at the county commissioners meeting, or zoning commission meeting. Apparently, there's a group in Topeka, and I found this on Twitter, so it's a quotation. Quote, "Kansas students should no longer be subject to social emotional learning curriculum and its accompanying critical race theory, behavioral screening, sex education, and school-based physical and mental health clinics." End of quotes. So there's a group in Topeka that are trying to defund public education, put out vouchers, put out rumors about critical race theory, which we don't teach. I don't know where they're getting their information. However, the boards in the state of Kansas receive policy updates from the Kansas Association of School Boards. So with that, I don't think every administrator has all the time in the world to read all this. And I want to assure the public that these policies are read, and there are some questions that I have. You don't have to answer them tonight, but on page 52, under support programs, in regard to drug education, my question would be, it says all students should be aware of the legal, social, and health consequences of drug and alcohol use, but that's for every single grade. So the question would be, do we have programs for every single grade? Because it seems to be relatively redundant to me. I'm not saying that we don't need a drug and alcohol education program, and I'm curious why we wouldn't use something like DARE also. That'd be my first question.
okay.
We're talking out here, I want to clarify. So when I read this, it says we should have a comprehensive drug and alcohol abuse and prevention program as part of our curriculum. And it says the curriculum at each grade level shall be age-appropriate and developmentally based. And so I don't read that to mean at every single grade, we have to have drug and alcohol abuse curriculum.
That's why I'm trying to get that clarified, so
Okay,
I don't disagree
all right.
with you.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Otherwise, you're right, it'd be redundant, you're
Okay,
right.
all right.
And then you go on
But
to,
some parents might really interpret it that way.
Yeah, that's why I just wanted to make sure that
right.
what his interpretation
Right.
was. Yeah.
and then it goes on to student mental health. The superintendent may develop and implement a student mental health awareness program. So my question would be, I know we have mental health services, so is that what you would consider our program per se?
Right. We have a grant that we work in conjunction with the state, and so the behavior intervention program. So we have a full-time therapist so we work with the Labette Center for Mental Health, providing those services during the day for students, as well as case management. The district also employs through CHCSEK another full-time therapist that's available for students to be seen on site. So that is our program.
Is that part of an awareness program? I know it's an action program.
So we have a liaison that works, Robin Thomas, and so that's one of the
Okay.
things that she does, is she makes folks aware.
So we do have, okay.
Yes.
That's all I'm getting at.
The teachers
All right.
know and can refer students, and families can refer themselves as well.
Now, move on to dropout prevention program. Is that through the counselors, or is that also mental health? Or
Think-
is there a particular program?
That's going
The
to be.
same thing with at-risk. Is there a program that identifies at-risk students?
Okay, so for dropout prevention, that's going to be a team effort. It's going to involve the counselors, staff, our new person that does planning with Kylie, Lucas, after school, graduation plans, all of those things. And, we do a lot of home visits, we make calls, so I feel like that's covered. At-risk students, there's certain criteria for, to use at-risk funds. And so we're aware of what those are and have, because now you have to identify what program you use that's approved and how much of that person's time is used for that program to make the payment. So to use at-risk funds to pay for those items. So we do have.
So it's incorporated within the curriculum that we already have, is that what you're saying?
We use programs that have been approved, that are approved by the State
For
Department.
example?
For example, Go Math. The math program that we use is approved.
Okay.
So there's a variety.
Now, regarding homebound, is that only for special ed students?
It could be for a special ed student or for a student that had a 504 plan. That would be, it's an individual-based need, and it isn't necessarily a long-term forever. We may have a student that's medically
Sick.
fragile.
Right.
That needs to have homebound services. We may have a student that comes from someplace else that has behaviors that aren't appropriate or safe to be in school, so that student may be homebound based on an IEP.
So the person, is there one individual or several individuals that do the homebound instruction, and are they tri-county or are they tri-county?
If the child has an IEP and is special education, then it would be tri-county staff.
So we have a tri-county homebound individual?
We have tri-county staff that may be assigned to provide homebound instruction.
Okay.
We don't necessarily have a person who all they do is homebound instruction.
But once again, my interpretation of this homebound instruction
It's a case by case.
is case by case, but it doesn't require an IEP or 504, because this policy, if we adopt it, allows the superintendent, if she or he deems it necessary, to provide homebound instruction.
Okay,
Without an IEP and a 504 is the way I'm interpreting that, if you look
okay.
at that language.
That's good news.
This time.
All right.
This time it
Well,
does.
that's the way it's
Yeah.
always been, isn't it?
It is, that's the way it is
Well,
always.
it's
Now,
a
and
little
Yeah.
more, gives a little more power, I think,
Yeah.
to
It
the
gives
superintendent.
yeah, it does give a little more control to the district
Keep in mind,
office.
this group is after the social emotional learning programs that we have. So I'm just trying to clarify some things so that we don't run into issues with this particular group. I want something on page 54 that's just a little more controversial. To me, classrooms are not public forums for display or distribution of political, religious, or personal viewpoints. Employees may not use classrooms for the posting or display of materials to promote or convey a political, religious, or personal message.
That is correct.
Now, the next sentence. This policy does not require a principal to remove photos, decorations, or other personal items from a teacher's desk or surrounding area as long as the items do not disrupt the learning process. In other words, at a teacher's desk, if they have Kansas City Chiefs, or a Bible, or a gay flag, gay pride flag, etc., that is that teacher's personal space. If it's not disrupting the learning, there's nothing wrong with that. However, if you start displaying pictures, flags all over the wall and room, that's a whole different ballgame. Is that not a correct statement?
Well, my interpretation, once again, is the very last sentence says, this policy does not require a principal to remove photos. So the word requires the operative word there.
I agree. And there's where the issue becomes. Then you start stepping on personal space, First Amendment rights. So this is a policy, so I'm just trying to clarify that policy so we don't run into major issues.
And I think when I look at that policy, the last 6 words are what's really, or 7 words. The items do not disrupt the learning process.
And
We
I
are
do
there
too.
for the teaching and the learning. And so that's what's going to be key, and that's what's going to determine what
I
is or
agree.
what isn't allowed.
Okay, that's fine.
Case-by-case basis.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the full reading of these, and if you have other questions, Lou, feel free to give me a call over the next week or so. I'll be in a couple weeks, and then we can get some answers prior to the meeting so that everyone can have the questions and the answers.
Well, this is the final version, correct?
We don't have to adopt
It
this.
hasn't been adopted. This is for you.
No, I mean, the wording is the final wording
It's-
that has not been adopted yet.
That's their
It's been recommended,
recommendation.
yeah.
That's their recommendation.
Okay.
We can go off the charts and add.
And that's what,
but-
okay,
yeah.
that's very good.
But once we adopt their recommendations, we're on a little more
Okay.
solid footing than if we go out on our own and make our own policy.
Yes, because it's not going to be me that argues, it's going to be this particular group. I could see it coming. Anyhow, thank you.
Okay, moving on to 9.4, action on policy BBBAC. And so I can discuss that. And so that's on page 73. And so on 73, this policy is a policy that relates to our board organization and officer election. And so we essentially, whenever we changed, when the elections changed, we used to have elections that were spring elections for school board. And so then this July 1st through June 30th made sense because we knew who our new school board member was going to be taking over in July 1. But now with our elections being in November, our school board members don't start until January. So they don't start at the same time. So we essentially relaxed this policy for that purpose at that point in time to say it doesn't do us any good to elect officers in July when we have a new school board members that start 6 months later. Now, we have another issue that's came up in the meantime, and that's the last part of this policy. And that is the president of the Board of Education shall not serve more than 2 consecutive one-year terms. So in the past, what's happened is myself or Mr. Castle or any of our predecessors, once we served 2 years, under this policy, we had to step out as board president and someone else had to serve. So another board member who's not here tonight suggested to me that we suspend this policy until further notice so that if it's this board wish to reelect me as board president, I could serve another one-year term. 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, however many I get elected, if we suspend this policy. And so that is the discussion tonight, because I have agreed to serve in that capacity if the board wishes to vote me in January. And Mr. Martino, I've had a conversation with him about it, has supported that and willing to serve in the vice president capacity. So we can discuss it at this point in time. Obviously, the board member who recommended that was in support of this at the time, so. Any discussion?
If you guys have done, I move that we suspend
Okay.
this.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion or clarification, Mr. Ray?
No, do we need to talk about the January?
Yeah, in January, we will do our organization meeting like we always have done the last several years. And so essentially what we'll be doing is suspending this policy until further notice. And then if we want to change the policy to include January or change the policy to include something else on a term limit for president, we can do that. But just for now, especially since there's just 4 of us, we probably just suspend it, and that solves the problem.
Do we suspend it for a particular time limit, or is it indefinite at this point?
I would say indefinite until we decide to reenact it or another policy would be my recommendation, because we can draft the policy to say something else when the whole board's here.
Okay.
So I should say we move to suspend it for an indefinite amount of time.
Yeah.
Until
Yeah.
we decide differently.
That's the second.
Okay. Move to second to suspend policy BBBAC until further notice. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. 9.5, discussion and possible action on the plan for safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services.
Okay, this is part of the ESSER 3 requirements. It's the plan that's been posted on our website. We're required every 6 months for the board to say, yes, we're going to continue with that plan. And so that is the formal action that we need so that we are in compliance with that requirement.
So do we have any changes that you've considered, or?
There are no changes that I recommend at this point.
Okay. So do we need action to continue with the
Yes.
plan? Okay, all right. So we need a motion then to continue with the plan as posted.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded to continue with the plan as posted for safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. 9.6, executive session. How much time do you need?
I'm going to need 15 minutes if no one has anything else.
Okay, does anybody have anything else? Okay, so I'll need about 5 minutes then. And so we will do 20 minutes then. Yeah, so we need a motion for that.
So moved. Go for 20 minutes.
Okay.
Second.
So, all right, it's been moved and seconded to enter executive session to discuss confidential employee information pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under COMA, the exception for employer-employee negotiations under COMA, and the exception relating to actions adversely or favorably affecting a student under COMA at 6:34 for 20 minutes, and we'll return back here at 6:54. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll start this out. You can let the record show with superintendent and assistant superintendent, but then they're going to leave towards the end, okay? All right. Yeah. Okay, we're back in open session. We do need to extend for 5 minutes, so I'll entertain a motion to have an additional, okay?
5 minutes.
All right.
Same reasons.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, we go into executive session, discuss confidential employee information pursuant to non-elected personnel exception under coma, exceptions for employer employee negotiations under coma, and exception relating to actions adversely or favorably affecting a student under coma. At 6:55, return to open meeting at 7, and it'll just be the board, not superintendent and assistant superintendent this time. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. back in open session, moving on to item 9.7, action on personnel.
All right, we have one termination for employment, Larry Lee, part-time evening custodian, effective December the 1st, 2022. I recommend you approve that termination.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve that termination. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we've got some resignations from employment. Gerald Beardmore, middle school assistant football coach, effective December the 5th, 2022. Dana Myers, child nutrition staff, effective December the 9th, 2022. She was also a bus monitor for us. That resignation will be effective December the 16th, 2022. And Linda Williams, Guthridge aide, effective December the 19th, 2022. I recommend that you approve those resignations from employment.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve those resignations. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we've got two recommendations for employment. Sheena Forsyth, middle school fac substitute teacher, effective December the 12th, 2022, and Jeremy Woodworth, middle school boys assistant basketball coach, effective the 22-23 season. I recommend that you approve those for recommendations for employment.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve those recommendations for employment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. No further business. We are adjourned.
All right.
Thank you for attending this evening.